Velkommen til Faglig Onsdag. Mitt navn Kirsti Svenning. Jeg jobber med kommunikasjon for BuildingSMART Norge, og I dag skal vi snakke om energisparing med BIM. Opptak av dette møtet og presentasjonene blir delt med alle påmeldte I etterkant. Still veldig gjerne spørsmål I chatten underveis, så skal vi prøve å rekke gjennom de fleste før vi ferdig. Vi holder på litt lenger enn vanlig I dag, 3 kvarter totalt. Først så skal vi ha 2 innledere fra BuildingSMART International som begge snakker på engelsk. Så avslutter vi med Camilla Draugedalen fra Norconsult som da snakker på norsk, og spørsmål kan være på begge språk. We will start this seminar on energy saving in BIM with 2 international guest speakers. Today's topic is energy saving in BIM, and in a time where the cost of energy is rising and the supply of energy is unstable, this is an important topic. We were delighted to read the new report from BuildingSMART International and decided to share that with a Norwegian audience. The report is entitled Information Delivery Manual, Development for Building Information Modeling and Building Energy Modeling Workflows. It's written by Ouellette and Mirbek Bekboliev, and we're delighted to have them both with us today. Ouellette will start. He is with us from Austin, Texas. He has over 30 years of experience in architecture, software development and marketing, as well as in standards development and implementation. Jeffrey is an independent IT consultant for the built asset industry, and besides his work with BuildingSMART International as a Technical Room International Program Coordinator, he is also the chair of the USA's chapter's Technical Committee. He is project manager for various BSI standards projects and works as a software implementation consultant on the USA BIM for Bridges and Structures project. I'll introduce Mirbek as well straight away. He is with us from Dresden in Germany. Mirbek is an accredited building physics engineer with more than 10 years of professional experience in both the sustainability sector and from prefabricated construction. Throughout his career, he has dealt with sustainable building design combined with BIM consultancy. Since 2017, he is a technical project manager at the BuildingSMART Germany, and since 2019, he is a BuildingSMART International CSTE member by taking a role of the technical lead in BuildingSMART International Building Room Steering Committee. Jeffrey will start by introducing the report and take a high-level look at things, introducing us to the complexity of the topics. After that, Mirbek will be introducing a few examples and a proof of concept. For those of you attending the BSI Summit in Montreal next week, these 2 will also do a side event on the report there. So do please ask questions in the chat as we go, and we'll do a joint Q&A at the end of the webinar after Camilla's introduction. The digital floor is yours, gentlemen. Are you there, Jeffrey?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Christy. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Hope this webinar finds you well. So, as Christy said, I'd like to start with an introduction to this report. Okay. So what I'll be speaking about today is this IDM development report. It is not an IDM. So an IDM is an information delivery manual, and this is based on an ISO standard in which we collect all of the information for a particular use case, in this case a use case for data exchange, and present it and format it in a way that you're able to understand what the information exchange requirements are. This project originally started as one particular use case, but the problem was there was no IDM behind it. They originally wanted just to develop a simple exchange of information, but one of the problems was not having the logic to understand if that was the appropriate use case, if that was actually applicable in the particular instance, if there wasn't enough information or baseline information to pursue it. And so what evolved then was undertaking this effort to develop the understanding of, why do we have BIM to BIM workflows and what is all the intricacies that are involved. So really in the end, what we end up with is this baseline for knowledge in deciding, well, what really needs to be done when we're talking about BIM and building energy modeling workflows. And it's not meant to solve all the problems of BIM or solve all the problems of even building energy modeling, but really focus on what does it take to exchange information between the two parts of the project delivery, project management processes. And so, one of the key things that we try to do at BuildingSMART International is come to a consensus, come to a collective agreement on what is the ground truth of particular issues, what are the ways forward, what are the things that we know are available to us and how we can move forward, making sure that people have clarity in understanding the problem as much as how to go about solving the problem. And this takes a lot of work. We like to tell people that working in BSI is much like working in the United Nations. You spend a lot of time through diplomatic efforts to get people to talk to each other and come to agreements. And that is important. I think it's true for most of what we do when we talk about trying to provide solutions to industry. As a famous quote from John Dewey, an American philosopher from the early 20th century, said, "A problem well put is half solved." And I think, one of the reasons that we do IDMs is to, put the problem forth and make sure that we're clear on what the problem is and how we intend to solve it. So the content of the report was really about making sure that we understand what the landscape of building energy modeling looks like and building information modeling looks like, and what are all these opportunities to share data between the two sort of processes or sub-processes of overall project delivery and operations, and understand all of the different precedents, the attempts that have gone before in trying to do this, but also understand all of the technologies that might be involved and all the differences between those technologies. Try to identify all of the stakeholders that are involved in these processes to make sure that everyone understands, why we do these things. And then we actually do a proposal of some use cases or exchanges. They're not fully described, they're not set in stone. These are just proposals to help start this conversation of achieving consensus. And going through this process and talking to many different experts and other people, other stakeholders in the field, there's no simple conclusions. And I think this is part of the importance of this particular report before we move forward into developing those actual data exchange solutions that are pointed out in the proposals, because there is so much going on here, and it does seem to be continually shifting. I don't think that means that it's not solvable. I just think that it requires these conversations to be held, and for people to listen and really consider the possibilities and opportunities. And so we're just going to quickly look here at the 12 different proposed use cases or exchanges. It is meant to cover the entire life cycle from the very beginning of determining what requirements are for a particular design, all the way through to the comparison and design of actual performance, and even the documentation of existing conditions for, say, recommissioning or decommissioning, which is also important. Now, in this report, these are proposed use cases. This is not set in stone. They could change over time. There might be additional ones, and in fact, my colleague Mirbek will show an additional use case. But we generally try to lay out through the life cycle of a project all of these opportunities to share data and why that data would be shared. So I think some other things that came about as we did the project too was I felt it was necessary to point out that the solution to any data exchange doesn't necessarily have to be or could be IFC. It may be actually be more appropriate to use other methods, other file formats, other data schemas to exchange information between two stakeholders and two tools. And I think we have to be open to that. My qualification on that is making sure that those methods are open and international, preferably international standards, because that's really the core of what we try to get at with BuildingSMART, is to provide those open international standard ways of sharing information and enabling these digital workflows to work. The other aspect of this is that in the end, we may not end up with formal exchange specifications. Some of you may know these as model view definitions from the IFC schema. But instead, they might just be guidelines or frameworks that talk about, well, if I'm going to do early stage energy modeling, here are the things that I should, excuse me, I should expect from a BIM workflow, or information I should expect, even though I may not actually exchange a particular file or file type, but what depth or level of development am I going to have for a particular model, and what does that mean in terms of level of information need? And then I think the other key thing, and Mirbek can talk to this as well, is that we have to think about both BIM and BEM in these larger contexts. So we talk about things like life cycle cost analysis, we talk about urban and regional context modeling, and of course, digital twins, which are all very important in determining the context of why we're sharing this information, why we're moving around from BIM to BEM or in the other direction, and getting people to understand, why we tackle these things over the life cycle, and why information might be needed very early on versus information that is, needed much later in the process. So where are we at? So we've gone through phase one, where we've actually developed the first revision, or the first versions of the report, and done an expert panel review. We had around 30 some experts provide me with about 350 comments. Took all of those comments and all that feedback, did a revision of the report, and right now the report is currently being reviewed by the BSI governance structure before it is published, and we're keeping our fingers crossed it'll be published before the end of 2022. Before publishing, we are going to talk about this at the upcoming BSI Summit in Montreal. We are having an open session, and we can get more information to you about that. But after publishing, the next steps then are to actually do the planning for executing the development of these data exchanges. And part of that might even be going back and examining, making sure that everyone agrees with the conclusions of the report, look at the type of proposals that are put out for exchanges, maybe adjust it, maybe, and do a roadmap that says, okay, is there more than 12? That's fine. But I think it's important for the industry to come together and do that. And then the second part of that is to actually pursue these specific IDM and information exchange developments and requirements. So I think the key thing for people to remember and understand about that second phase is that, we have to keep things software and even methodology agnostic. You never know what are the simulation and analysis tools and methodologies that are going to be used on either end. In this case, especially on the building energy modeling end, because there are differences. There is a wide variety of solutions out there available. And, we want to make sure that not just those technology solutions, but also the regional requirements, those local requirements, jurisdictional requirements for energy and sustainable design are being accommodated. So there has to be some flexibility there in the standards that we do to develop. And as I said before, those standards, those solutions may not be purely IFC. They may have other components. And, you know, as I said before, I think a large part of this is what we're trying to do is establish an effort within BuildingSMART International that is a consensus team build effort to solve these issues, right? And they may not be perfect, but, you know, nothing that's done in a consensus way, nothing that's done with a high level of teamwork and complexity has necessarily perfection in and of itself in the product, but that's what you're always striving for. And we really hope that people can come together and have these conversations and talk with each other rather than sort of at each other. Because what we hope for is a team effort in which everyone is working towards the same goal, instead of, unfortunately, a typical scenario in which everyone's ideas are competing with each other, and then it becomes a matter of, you know, whose idea wins, who can, you know, do the most to prevail upon everyone else about their perspective. And that's not productive for the entire industry. So, you know, my goal and my hope is that we can move this forward in a way that everyone can be happy at the very end, and we can have practical solutions in order to, you know, further this effort of getting effective data exchange between BIM and building energy modeling platforms. So with that, before taking any questions, I will turn this over to Mirbek for his part of the presentation.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey. Let's see if we can get your presentation up, Mirbek.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Kirsty. So I'll share my screen. Could you confirm it if you can see it?
We can see it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Thank you for your invitation. I will really try to keep short and only on the important parts. Like Jeffrey mentioned, I will try to cover the part where we will explain that use cases are important, and the processes, of course. Those use cases will be covered in a really small pace, and then I will pick one specific one that we will also present during the summit. And that use case we prepared is really important, and not only for sustainability consultants, but so for building owners. That was the main idea about that. And like Kirsty mentioned, currently we are facing the big issue with fossil fuels, and as you know, the buildings are mainly using the currently gas for heating and fossil fuels for heating. It might be a problem in the future. It's already a problem now. That's why it's important to address those issues, and not only in the current planning stage, but also later on and for existing buildings. And the main part that 80% of those buildings are leaky, and they are all not energy efficient. So it means built stock has 80% of not efficient buildings, and so we have to address it somehow. And there comes open standards and also processes, as well as related software solutions. Of course, building energy modeling is a main important tool or methodology that we can address and at least predict and see how it will look like at the end. So that's what we're trying to address at. Of course, there are a lot of initiatives. We will simply cover some of them. And the topics that I will slightly go through it. They're related with other standards, and not just one standard like passive house standard. It could be also related to green building certifications like BREEAM, like LEED, or like DGNB, and so on. So these requirements should be, of course, somehow be addressed. I will go through This presentation you will get anyways as a PDF later on. You can check what is important, and here's the abbreviations that we made an analogy in the previous summit, so you will understand what we're talking about. What is IDM? What's exchange requirements, process maps, and what's MVDs? It's we try to make a small comparison so that you will understand what we are trying to do. And by doing an IDM, we are trying to cover the recipe. Of course, all the exchange requirements, or like Jeffrey mentioned, exchange models, they are ingredients. We need to know what we need to deliver and what we require from other part. Of course, the processes should be described, they should be optimized or standardized in that case. So all these steps need to be communicated. Of course, you also have other open standards related to being used, like IFC, BitCF, services like use case management or BSTD. So I will shortly cover the process part. We have proposed some exchange models, and based on that exchange models, we try to cover the process map. And this process map, it shows at least a proposed case. It's not ideal, it's not the best, but it has some important aspects, like usually or commonly, even not widespreadly, that architects will be sketching the building, let's say, not modeling, even sketching a building, and then sustainability consultant will come up and should improve it already what was, I'd say, designed by an architect, and that's not the best case. So the energy efficiency, sustainability should play a major role, and will be directly involved at the very beginning, starting from an idea. If we know the requirements, you start with your requirements from the very day when you have as a client, your requirements being established, like IERs, and those requirements should be cover what you want to expect. So this is what steps that you usually cover. As soon as a sustainability or energy consultant is directly involved, they can play a role of tandem team together with architects, so that will be played hand in hand when you create your building, not only for green building, or it could be a normal building that you usually build for yourself, like a house. And if you know that the process is that you try, unless you are an architect with those skills, you know how to design energy efficient buildings, and then you will go through those simulations, those analysis, and perform your evaluations already in advance. That's what we thought. It should at least guide people and to understand that this is a case when you achieve your efficiency at the very beginning. You like Jeffrey mentioned, some use cases like CFD analysis. When you have your mass model, you can't do it with a mass model already. Some analysis like daylight analysis or solar studies, CFD analysis. It could be flood analysis if you use BIM and JS solutions. Of course, these examples could also lead that you may check if the building shape is enough for your PV photovoltaic applications. So do you know where it will be the best location to put them on? And of course, we know that some at the later stage you would perform simulations for daylight, and it should be more detailed. As soon as you have your building envelope, you have your windows, openings, and skylights, whatever, you can already start analyzing them. For that, by the way, you need to know your requirements, and those requirements are important to know what software is also supporting. Another way, if you know that IFC it supports IFC 2x3, unfortunately to 2x3, then you should export your MVD like IFC 2x3 coordination view, and but not IFC4 reference view. In that case, the other part or sustainability consultants, energy experts should require them that models in precise. So it should be, of course, reflected everywhere. Not one solution, like Jeffrey mentioned, not one solution is everywhere possible. So you have to know your requirements, and you have to communicate them properly for detailed design as well, and so on. So we went through some use cases. This is a sub-process which we went through it in detail. There are, of course, the classical ones, but with some slight improvements based on the past experience. What could be done better? And as you can see, even the analysis could be done in tandem. If architect already communicates with a sustainable consultant and get direct feedback, then you will have your building shape already optimized. So I'll skip this part. You can simply check. But we are currently working on use case that will cover mainly the operation phase. You know, BSI has 4 phases: design, procure, assemble, and operate. And operation means the building already exists, it is being built, and well, what you have to know about it. There are in that case, you have probably your building already in model in IFC. You paid the architect, you have that model. So how you will deal with that, or if it's an existing old building, but you have to digitalize, how you will do that? Of course, that comes then BCF for application. Yeah, that's why I will explain now shortly. The inspiration come from this video. You all know about this video. It's what Open BIM does for you. I think it originally came from BuildingSMART Norway. So it's then later on it was adapted to BuildingSMART International. This directly explains how you would deal with open standards and how you would be able to implement them. So you have your IFC, you have your BCF. Later on for dynamic cases, like when IFC is static, BCF is dynamic, so you can reflect your dynamic information through this standard. As an example, we chose one existing building and said, like, okay, I'm coming from a prefabricated industry. I know it, that it will be challenging there. So this building is a containerized building. It's a small container building located on site. There were 2 cases, like a new one directly in the factory. You have a lock, you have your building model in IFC, you can directly perform all necessary analysis. But if you have later on being on site, it's 10 years, 10 years later, you have your building in such a form that you need to perform some analysis, and you know that it will not be energy efficient. So you perform the necessary analysis. What you need to do that, you need to go for define your requirements, and then for change requirements, those are the requirements, usual inputs that you need to do for your assessment. This is just a part where we're currently working on the exchange requirements, and for that will be covered on this upcoming use case management platform of BSI. You will see the tools already being listed, the media, in that case, it's a model, you need thermal imaging, you need blower dot tests and BCF reports and so on. This will be covered later on. The building assessment, you may know that the building assessment is not so easy job. You need to perform it with some tools, measurements. In some building energy management measurements are lasting 1 year even to get the whole year energy performed. But if you have some tools like thermal graph image, camera, and blower dot test, you can directly perform them on the building envelope and see if there are leakages. Imagine, that's a point here. Imagine you have your building. It's small house, as you can see here. It will be not so. It will be easy to locate them and leakages, problems in the building envelope. But how you map them, and later on how you will find in reality. It will be on paper. You come on site, you mark where you have a problems. But imagine you have a model. That will, of course, that's an advantage. You can map those later on with your model. And imagine if you're working with paper and you come up with this building, which is a skyscraper, and you see that I did performance, but I had a really tough problems finding those leakages, and each floor, where was it, and you have to deal with all of them. And that's a case when you can facilitate all that kind of works being done by energy experts. You can not only for energy experts, those files, those energy evaluations or evaluations in general, reports come from expert. As a building owner, you will get the files. You have to find them out where you had these problems. So these issues will be precisely documented. How you use the documentation, we propose that BCF is BCF and issue management is the best case. You can add those reports. As you can see, there's a blower.test report. There's issues that you find out during the test, and of course you can report them as a case, and you directly can tag your building location. And in that case, let's say corner of that building has leakages, thermal bridges, and so on. For the whole building, you can tag, or it's a space, let's say, you can tag and attach blower.test with all necessary reports and explain that there were some issues and so on with related report. You will find the person on other end, let's say architect, building owner, whoever, or even your colleagues not on site in bureau or sitting in the office. You will be able to click on that report and directly go to the location. Oh, this a problem is located there. You can find it. So this is an example of being used.
Mirbek, are you moving to a close in terms of time now?
Yeah, it's also so that's what we discussed, and those reports could be also transported not only by with the IFC. You will not be able to import, so you need to use BCS for that. For the same reason, like you have a building, you performed not only blower.test, but daylight analysis. You performed the thermal imaging and also analysis for thermal bridges. So you can attach them, and you have all them through the BCF, and it's applicable for all cases. So it means open standards could be implemented not only at the planning stage, but also later on construction and operation. That's most important. So I think I'm done here, and there are some links, so you will get this presentation later on. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Mirbek. That was very useful. And also, in addition to your report, Camilla, you can put up your presentation now. But in addition to your report, Jeffrey Mirbek, it's also good to know that there's a standards Norway working group on energy simulation that uses models. So perhaps it would be interesting to connect their work to yours at one point as well. And as you will also be presenting this report in BuildingSMART Summit, there will be more opportunities to discuss it in the immediate future. Again, thank you both for taking part today, and we'll save the questions for the end, so please do put them up in the chat. We're now moving on to the Norwegian case. Og da bytter jeg til norsk også. Camilla Draugedalen fra Norconsult. Hun utdannet automasjonsingeniør og har mange års erfaring med leveranse av digitale systemer for drift og vedlikehold i industri, kommunalteknikk, samferdsel og bygg. De seneste årene så har hun hatt bransjeansvar for prosjekter rundt industrielt IoT og AI i smarte bygg, og før hun i i fjor da, startet Norconsult som fagspesialist på smart teknologi med mål om å bidra til å sette fart på en bærekraftig digital transformasjon ved å koble behov, konsepter og smart teknologibruk for ressursoptimalisering. Camilla skal følge opp temaet fra rapporten som vi nettopp har fått presentert, og snakke om hva det er vi kan gjøre med energisparing i BIM i dag, og hva vi kan få til fremover hvis vi bruker teknologi på en bedre måte. Vær så god, Camilla, vi gleder oss til å høre hva du har å si.
Hjertelig takk for invitasjonen, Kjersti, og takk også til BuildingSMART og forfatterne av rapporten for den verdifulle innsatsen som lagt ned i det arbeidet der. Vi trenger et felles vokabular og metodikk for gjennomføring, så jeg gleder meg til å ta den nærmere i øyesyn. Jeg har tenkt å bruke den anledningen her til å snakke både om hva vi gjør, men også hva vi gjerne vil gjøre i Norconsult når det kommer til informasjonsmodellering og bærekraftig digital transformasjon. For i dagens fysiske virkelighet så vi nødt til å transformere og innovere. Vi må ville endring om vi skal klare å gjøre næringen vår miljømessig, sosialt og forretningsetisk bærekraftig. Og jeg kommer til å ta utgangspunkt i spennende internt utviklingsarbeid, innovasjonspartnerskap og tverrfaglige konseptutredninger levert blant annet fra avdelingen som jeg hører til, energi og smart teknologi. Og jeg skal prøve å holde meg innenfor 10 minutter, men hvis det noen som vil ha en prat om digitaliseringsløp knyttet til disse eller andre utfordringer, så det bare å ta kontakt i etterkant for en smart prat. Jeg tenker å sparke inn det jeg regner med åpne dører i denne forsamlingen, og det gjør jeg ved å bruke ordene til Anders Våge Nilsen, som tidligere teknologikommentator i DN. For strukturerte data og åpne standarder, det den kjedelige veien til radikal innovasjon. Og for meg som har rukket å jobbe en stund med innovasjon og digital transformasjon i bygg- og anleggsbransjen, så dette fremdeles en av våre aller største utfordringer om vi skal få satt fart på digitaliseringen og ressursoptimaliseringen som helt nødvendig, og gjøre noe med den litt flaue bunnlisteplasseringen næringen har over ulike næringers digitale modenhet. Et lite bakteppe med en introduksjon av avdelingen jeg hører til. Vår kompetanse sydd sammen for å ha full kontroll på desentraliserte energisystemer, og vi jobber helt fra tidlig fase planoppdrag med energimodellering, lokal produksjon og distribusjon, integrerte tekniske bygningsinstallasjoner og teknisk prosjektledelse og energiprosesser innenfor industri, og med smart teknologi som en integrert del av alle våre tjenester. Denne kombinasjonen av kunnskap, den har gjort at vi får jobbe med veldig mange spennende miljøengasjerte kunder og veldig interessante prosjekter som også hjelper oss med å utvikle vår kompetanse videre. Dette et av de. Elektrifiseringen av samfunnet den gir et stadig økende fokus både på energieffektive bygg, effektiv lokal energiproduksjon og smart styring av effektkrevende installasjoner under drift. De komplette systemdesignene blir stadig mer komplekse, og styresystemer med fokus på å optimalisere energiutnyttelse og begrensning av effekttopper. Det gir både sluttbrukere og samfunnet reduserte økonomiske og miljømessige kostnader. Et ZEN, eller Zero Emission Neighborhood, et nullutslipps nabolag. Og for området Flytårnet på Fornebu, så har Bærum kommune gitt Norconsult bestilling om å hjelpe dem å kartlegge og konkretisere hva som vil være nødvendig med tanke på energi og effekt, målene i ZEN, for å gjøre dette området veldig miljøvennlig og nær null utslipp av miljøgasser gjennom områdets livsløp, eller altså det satt en 60-årsperiode. For energi og effekt så handler jo det om å sette opp energieffektive bygg, men også om å få til en energimessig balanse mellom energiforbruk og egen produksjon for enkeltbygg og bygg i et område. Vi starter med konklusjonen på hvordan vi setter sammen et energi- og effektoptimalt område, og den konklusjonen at vi må sette sammen riktig bygg og forbrukere. Altså alle bygg har ulike forbrukskurver, og den beste måten å få til et nullutslipps nabolag, det hvis vi har en bygningssammensetning hvor dette balansert i så stor grad som mulig, sånn at du har et jevnt forbruk og trenger mindre effekt inn til området. Byggene må selvsagt være effektive, altså de må være energieffektive bygg. De tekniske systemene, de må kunne snakke sammen og virke sammen for at vi skal få dette her til. Og fleksibiliteten i området den øker med lokal energiproduksjon og lagring. Utgangspunktet for å kunne jobbe med disse problemstillingene, det tilgang på informasjon. Og når data bor i ulike siloer, så har de mindre verdi. Men når vi klarer å kombinere dem, så det veldig mye verdifull innsikt å finne. Og i prosjektet så har vi samlet formålsdelt registrerte energidata fra driftskontroll og energioppfølgingssystemer, gitt fra ulike bygningskategorier. Data for lokal energiproduksjon og lagring, detaljerte klimadata, og volumer og termiske egenskaper fra bygningsinformasjonsmodellen. Til sammen utgjør dette underlaget for å etablere en digital representasjonsmodell, eller en form for digital tvilling, eller kanskje halvsøster på dette stadiet i prosessen, av både bygningsmassen og det tilhørende multiakse energisystemet, altså et energisystem som består av både elektrisk og termisk energi, og sentralisert og lokal produksjon og lagring. Jeg bare blar raskt gjennom for å vise litt hvordan vi bruker disse dataene, for vi ser på ulike effektkurver. Den digitale tvillingmodellen den koblet sammen med et effektbarberingsverktøy, som lar oss se på ulike konsepter for energioptimalisering og effektutjevning. Og her ser dere litt sånn hvordan solcelleproduksjon og ladeforbruk og alle disse kurvene kommer opp på hverandre, og hvordan vi da kan jobbe med å faktisk få til heller eksport av energi ut fra området enn et høyt forbruk i området ved å skyve litt rundt på laster og gå for lokal energiproduksjon og lagring. Så det var bare fort igjennom. Hvis noen interessert i å høre mer om det, så har jeg masse mer jeg har lyst til å snakke om, så det bare å ta kontakt i etterkant. Det finnes jo flere måter å jobbe smart på, og sammen med Obos eiendom i prosjektet Construction City så har vi jobbet helhetlig og langsiktig med mål om å benytte BIM både i prosjektering til kvalitetskontroll og optimalisering, og som utgangspunkt for utvikling av en digital plattform for drift og forvaltning av bygget, koblet da til levende datastrømmer både fra IoT-sensorer og byggnære tekniske systemer. Obos de har store ambisjoner og vilje til å tenke nytt og tverrfaglig, både på egne og bransjens vegne. Digitaliseringsstrategien deres ligger klar, og det stilt tydelige krav til alle tekniske leveranser, men standardiserte informasjonsmodeller og ontologier, altså måten vi organiserer informasjonen vår på, og gjør den tilgjengelig mellom de ulike fagområdene, det ikke egentlig en godt etablert praksis i bransjen, og vi ser at endringsviljen i markedet, det en tilbakevendende utfordring, særlig der hvor man ender opp med å kanskje utfordre enkelte leverandørers forretningsmodeller og inntektsmuligheter. Men gjennom gode samtaler om mål og ønsket virkning, så får vi også et godt grunnlag for å få til mye bra i samarbeid. Og når den gjensidige forståelsen og respekten der, så klarer vi å få til mye allikevel, selv om innsatsfaktoren blir høyere når vi får en del manuelle integrasjoner og dataoverføringer. Erfaringen fra Construction City den støtter også opp om behovet for denne standardiseringen som rapporten tar høyde for, og etableringen av et felles vokabular, altså en måte å snakke om det på som gjør at vi forstår hverandre uavhengig av hvilken fagsilo vi hører til. Sånn at vi får på plass den tverrfaglige samhandlingen tidlig for å finne ut hvem som trenger hva og på hvilken form av informasjon. For i tidlig fase, da, når modellmodenheten lav, og man kanskje ikke har rukket å ta den tverrfaglige samtalen om hva som nødvendig nivå og oppløsning på informasjon for at de ulike fagområdene skal kunne jobbe smart og effektivt, så det ikke alltid at alt klaffer når informasjon skal for eksempel fra arkitekt til prosjekterende ingeniører. Og det jo typiske situasjoner som gir litt hodepine og trengs litt Paracet, som vi har kalt en del av vår utviklede funksjon i Norconsult. Det finnes alltid muligheter om man litt kreativ og tilpasningsdyktig, og i stedet for å vente på at vi får alt perfekt, så utvikler vi stadig enkelte små funksjoner og effektive arbeidsverktøy med utgangspunkt i formatene som tilgjengelige fra BIM-modellen. For å enklere kunne gjenbruke de dataene som ligger i modellene vi mottar, selv om det ikke optimalt lagt inn for fagene våre. På denne måten så kan vi sørge for at vi kommer raskt frem til riktig beregnings- og prosjekteringsunderlag basert på det som faktisk ligger i modellen fra de andre fagområdene. Ønskedrømmen jo selvsagt at denne type verktøy blir helt unødvendig, men vi kan ikke helt sitte med hendene i fanget og vente heller. De dataene som finnes, de kan og skal benyttes, og de ulike fagene skal slippe å dynges ned med informasjon de ikke er behov for. Så det er viktig at vi liksom klarer å sortere informasjonen godt, sånn at alle får det de trenger, og ikke noe mer enn det. I de tilfellene som vi kommer til enighet, sånn som i Construction City, om hva en bygningsenergimodell skal inneholde, så kan vi også klargjøre eksporten fra BIM på en måte som gjør at det er veldig effektivt å etablere modeller for energimodellering. Smart teknologibruk gir brukertilpasset informasjon med riktig detaljnivå til riktig tid. Og BIM-modellen her danner utgangspunktet for å simulere inneklimaet. Dette er atriumet i Construction City-prosjektet. Hvor vi har jobbet med ulike scenarier. Her samles over 200 personer i disse oppholdssonene, og det er store glassarealer, og det er en zone som er utsatt for mye solinnstråling på sommertid, og har et ganske stort varmetap på vinteren. Så her er det veldig viktig at vi ser nøye både på inneklima, så vi får rette varme- og kjølekapasiteter for å opprettholde temperaturen i henhold til forskriftene, men også tar de gode valgene sammen med de andre fagområdene for å sørge for at vi får et bærekraftig bygg. Denne modellen er benyttet i tverrfaglig samarbeid for å finne gode tekniske løsninger, og den er også klargjort for videre bruk i drift og forvaltning. Nå har jeg rast gjennom så fort jeg bare har kunnet, og sett raskt på noen eksempler på potensial og informasjonsmodellering og verdibidraget i utnyttelsen av data, brukt til energi- og effektoptimalisering på bygg- og områdenivå. Men som dette bildet er ment å illustrere, så er det fremdeles en del hindre og utfordringer som vi kan støte på veien til det optimale området som skimtes i horisonten der. Det er ikke bare å komme frem til energi- og effektoptimaliserte bygg og områder. Ofte så støter vi på tekniske utfordringer, vi kan støte på regulatoriske utfordringer, som det å overføre energi mellom bygninger utenom en områdekonsesjon. Og veldig ofte så er BIM-modellen så innholdsrik og kompleks at det kreves mye tid og manuell innsats for å komme frem til et hensiktsmessig utgangspunkt for energimodellering. Og dermed så har det også hendt at vi har sett 3-4-5 ulike modeller i samme prosjekt, hvor BIM-en egentlig bare blir en egen geometrimodell for tidligfase prosjektering og kollisjonskontroll, i stedet for en informasjonsmodell, som jo egentlig er hovedønsket. Filimport er jo ryddig og forutsigbart, men monolittiske arkitekturer er kanskje ikke best egnet til å bygge sammenhengende tjenester som kan bidra til kontinuerlig optimalisering. Det vi gjør i tidligfase prosjektering, i tillegg til kvalitetssikring av prosjekteringen, det gir jo et grunnlag for at vi kan etablere en detaljert virtuell representasjon av det fysiske anlegget vi bygger. Og en digital tvilling som kan benyttes til innsiktsmodellering, prediktive og preskriptive analyser, altså forutse hva som kommer til å skje, og kanskje gjøre aksjoner til og med, for å oppnå ønsket resultat i drift og vedlikehold gjennom hele livssyklusen. Og ønskedrømmen er jo å komme dit hvor data flyter mellom de ulike systemene, og vi kan forbedre tverrfagligheten uten at vi egentlig trenger å sitte fysisk sammen i et rom og diskutere ting, fordi at kunnskapen også er bygd inn i informasjonsmodellene og verktøyene som er knyttet sammen. Skal vi se... Da er jeg helt på slutten. De bærekraftige prosjektene de krever evne til tverrfaglig samhandling og tilgjengelige kvalitetssikrede data, som utgangspunkt både for planarbeid, prosjektering, modellering, beslutningsunderlag og evaluering. Og denne læringsloopen som vi bør søke etter, den er veldig viktig for oss for å kunne drive bærekraftig samfunnsutvikling, reell forbedring og kontinuerlig optimalisering av både prosjekteringsarbeid og driftssituasjoner. Ønskedrømmen er som sagt å komme dit hvor data flyter mellom de ulike systemene, og vi kan forbedre tverrfagligheten uten at vi egentlig trenger den fysiske samhandlingen hele tiden. Og så er det samtidig en oppfordring til å bruke hvert datapunkt så mange ganger du kan, da øker de verdi, og husk at data også har et miljøfotavtrykk. Så one source of truth, og så mye informasjon samlet på et sted som overhodet mulig, det er også et bærekraftstiltak. Da var jeg
Tusen takk, Camilla. That was very interesting. And seeing as everyone, all three of you has used all the time talking today, it's perhaps just as well that we don't have any questions that are burning. So you were apparently all very clear. Thank you again to all three of you, and a taping of this seminar will be sent out to everyone afterwards. And I think we can sum up like this. To save energy and get through both this and a future crisis, we need to continue to work on open standards, think big, break down the silos, and accommodate for even more collaboration across the sectors. Thank you again. Til alle som har fulgt oss, takk for det, og husk at BuildingSMART Norge en ideell organisasjon som trenger støtte fra nye og eksisterende medlemmer for å lage aktiviteter og fortsette å jobbe for å sikre bransjen sin bruk av åpne standarder for livsløpet. Vil du bli medlem, eller bli mer aktiv enn før, eller ønske å vite mer, så kan du melde deg inn i en av arbeidsgruppene våre, eller komme med forslag til tema for en ny. Vi åpner for innspill av alle slag, og det samme gjelder hvis du har et ønske om hva de her onsdagsseminarene bør handle om. Neste gang 16. november. Da skal vi snakke om landskapsarkitektur og BIM. Vi ferd med å sikre foredragsholdere, men hvis dere ønsker å komme med innspill om hvem det kan være, så vi også åpne for det noen få dager til. Vi har gode på blokka, men tar gjerne innspill. Vi håper dere logger på neste gang, og at dere tipser andre interesserte. Tusen hjertelig takk for i dag. Vi ses!